No.
Yes. All right, everybody ready? So we're already recording, so. Okay, I'm gonna call our meeting to order. This is November 22nd, 6 o'clock, special meeting of the Board of Education. And we will start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, could you please take the roll?
Alan Purnell.
Here.
Matthew Phipps.
Here.
Stacy Stelner.
Here.
Matthew Spalding.
Here.
Carrie Trask. Tony Bostelica.
Here.
Kathy Willis.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to start with public input, and I will read off everybody's name. If you would just come forward and state your name and also your address. Our first person is Eric Nitch, I think is the pronunciation.
Where do I?
Oh yeah, we used to, here's a podium right here.
Good evening. My name is Eric Nitch. I live at 1437 Hazelwood Drive. I'm here tonight paying a babysitter because I am disappointed. I'm disappointed that this publicly elected board has taken actions that have caused just about every educator that I know or see out at bars or restaurants or on the street to approach me and ask, Eric, what can you do about this? I'm a lawyer, for those who don't know. And that this isn't just one thing, it's a cascade of utter nonsense. Look, I believe every one of you wants to do right by the kids in the community. I truly do believe that. You're all dealt a difficult hand when our former superintendent announced his departure 3 months into the calendar year last year. This year. You didn't have time to do a real search for a replacement, and you did the right thing and you hired an interim superintendent. But an interim superintendent is just that, interim. He's a placeholder. He's supposed to steer the ship, not turn a sailboat into a canoe.
Thank you.
The minute reorganization was discussed, you should have seen red flags. How are you supposed to start a proper nationwide superintendent search in January when there is chaos at central office? What kind of second-rate candidates are we going to be able to attract? You've got to fix this now. You don't think word of this is going to get out? 4 of the top positions in this district found out their jobs were being eliminated when a new position was posted? That new position was up for like, what, a week? And none of the other 7 candidates were interviewed? And the one on your agenda today is an old pal of the interim superintendent. We had a committee of 17 people involved in the hiring of Anna Beatty, a middle school associate principal. What kind of Mickey Mouse operation are you running? I'm embarrassed for you. I am embarrassed for you. And utterly disappointed. Then there's the curriculum issue. SFA isn't approved by the DPAI. Okay, fine, sure. I don't know the first thing about choosing a curriculum. I'm no better at that than a former cop or a therapist or a light bulb salesman. But I do know that educators know a little something about it. And I know that Lucy Calkins with phonics was on the chopping block for over a year because there was a group working on a replacement for a year, headlined by the literacy specialists and other literacy educators in the district. They were, to my knowledge, ready to present their findings to this body. Mr. Interim knew this and didn't care. Now, again, I don't know the first thing about SFA. I don't. But I do know an early childhood curriculum expert who works at one of those districts in the Milwaukee area that every other district in this state wants to be. She never heard of SFA either. She couldn't even find it on Ed Reports. Couldn't find it on Ed Reports. It's been around forever. She called it old. Now, after giving me far too much of her time and then reviewing what's available online and then giving me even more of her time, she wanted to know, well, first, why we spend valuable ESSER funds on pilot program resource when we could have hired 10 educators focused on elementary reading and coaching which is what they did. But then she wanted to know what kind of measurables are coming out of the pocket, out of the pilot. What are we looking for? What's the impact? What is the feedback from the community, the teachers, the students? What is the plan to monitor the adoption of the pilot? She couldn't imagine running a pilot without all of that clearly defined from the outset. She kept emphasizing over and over, there isn't one perfect program out there. Maybe SFA is fine. But if this was sold to you as a board as some kind of cure for what ails the district, you've been sold a bag of magic beans. Far more important than even the resource is the teacher buy-in to the resource. If you don't have teacher buy-in, we're going to get worse, not better. As you've doomed SFA already by not getting any buy-in. Educators weren't part of this process because you're doing everything behind closed doors and quickly. I mean, one of the pillars of your strategic plan that you guys kept touting, workforce engagement. You failed here. You failed so hard, it almost certainly doomed any hopes you had for SFA. And this is the part where I say, hey, don't take my word for it. I'm just a lawyer. You shouldn't trust me, right? No, go talk to teachers. I can't do that either because you've lost them. They're never going to open up to you. The level of trust is going off a cliff. I can't tell you how many educators told me, Mr. Interim's a hothead who yells and screams at staff. I heard it's a terrifying dictatorship, literally, from multiple people. How is that even possible in 2022? How is that possible? Honestly, this is my brain. And I heard much worse, much worse. I'm not going to say them here. It's a public forum. I don't know if they're true, but it doesn't matter. When leadership has lost the rank and file back past mere months into a tenure, that's a total and complete failure of leadership. Getting rid of everyone who challenges them, installing an old friend as his number two. These are enormous red flags. How does the board not see this? Yeah, God, don't hire this person. For all I know, it could be a great hire, but the process has cursed her. She won't be able to overcome the avalanche of ill will she's already facing, probably through no fault of her own. How are you not horrified by this? How do you not see it? Do better. Be better. God, I'm disappointed.
Here. The next person is Darian Katarabik. Okay, and then I'm going to read this was submitted by Linda Gratz, and also Michael Parody, Keith Shaw, Dave Longmire, and Dave Nichols. The most important job for a Board of Education is to hire a superintendent to lead the school district. Last spring, when the former superintendent left, there was too little time left to run a meaningful search for a replacement. So the MPSD board chose to hire an interim person to fill the position for 1 year, announcing it would use the time to do a full national search with appropriate input from staff and public. It now appears that the board have changed their minds and are preparing to make the interim hire permanent. This decision has been made with little or no discussion at open meetings and little or no public or staff input. It is crucial, that the board conduct an open, transparent search for the district superintendent, and that it includes active participation of all stakeholders, including teachers, staff, administrators, students, parents, and community leaders. Therefore, we former MPSD board presidents want to urge the Board of Education to slow down the present process to allow for a full, open, transparent national search for our superintendent. I have another letter that was sent from Lisa Krieger. She wanted us to read this. Dear MPSD board members, as a parent in the district, I'm so thankful for all the work Superintendent File is doing and sincerely hope you offer him a full-time permanent position. Also, thank you for your time and work as a school board member. Sincerely, Lisa Krieger. The next person is Deb Vandenhouten.
So I am Deb Vanden Newton, and I am a career-long educator in the Manitowoc Public Schools. My address is 2304 South 13th Street in Manitowoc. So I am here tonight to ask the board for 3 things. Please do what is right. Please do what is fair. And please follow through on what you promised. So starting with what is right. A lot of people here on the board were elected by the community on the idea that change was needed. And I know, being a teacher, change can be a very positive thing. If you don't want change, don't go into education, right? So, but if you want change that's going to work, we could benefit a little bit from understanding how the brain functions when it comes to change. The human brain is hardwired to dislike uncertainties because uncertainties equate in our brain to danger. So when faced with uncertainty, people become stressed and they respond with resistance. So if an organization wants to create positive change and more successful change, leadership needs to emphasize not just the vision of change, but also a reassurance of some continuity. We need to hear what's going to stay the same. We could use that right now. We need to hear what is central to who we are as a school district, what's going to be preserved, despite all the uncertainty and changes on the horizon. Also, when leaders drive some kind of change in an organization, they must consider the impact that it's going to have on its people. I mean, we're not a manufacturing business. We are a business of people, all the staff and all the students, all the community members, all the parents. So staff engagement is so necessary to fully implement effective change. You have to involve the stakeholders to have buy-in for that change. Sometimes right now we're finding out more about what's happening in our district through social media platforms than directly from our leaders. Well, of course, that makes us feel not part of the process. We all know change is hard. Superintendent Files said that. But change should not have to be so upsetting to the staff and to the reputation of the district. I've always been a proud member of MPSD. And sadly, recently, I don't think I could recommend it to other people like I always have. It's no longer the case for me, and that's so unfortunate. So I want you to ask yourselves, will the changes being implemented so hard and so fast be the cause for people to reconsider working for a district? Like, let's say they commute from out of town. Are they going to want to keep doing that? Or to even apply in our district in the first place? I'm afraid that that's going to happen. We're going to lose quality staff members through too fast change that doesn't involve us. And I think the current climate already has caused this. I believe some administrators were driven away by the current climate at central office. Very sad. Consider also the ripple effect of our Manitowoc community. We were always a community with a great reputation for great schools. But now our district is probably going to deter people from wanting to move here or put their kids in our schools. Are we also going to lose students that we already have due to an unhealthy climate, due to lack of choices? I also ask you to do what is fair and what was promised. This board promised transparency. Having meetings in closed session and doing things behind closed doors to create new positions and eliminate other positions. This is not transparency. We need to be fair and transparent with our hiring policies across the district. So if a professional, educated teacher wishes to switch positions within the district, or sometimes even within a building, he or she is required to create a cover letter and a resume, then follow up and go through the interview process. Our district now uses this requirement to be certain that the person is the best fit candidate for that position. So for the newly created assistant superintendent position, are we following the same process? Did you, the school board members, get to choose the best from all the candidates? Or was this person handpicked for you? When we see one candidate being taken to buildings and introduced to our leaders, we wonder, has the decision already been made, even though it's on tonight's agenda? What kind of weight should one person, a temporary employee, have in selecting the assistant superintendent? And what about the position of superintendent? Are you all going to follow through with a promise to take the time during this interim year to do a thorough search for the best possible candidate? Will you follow through with a recommendation to hire that outside agency? Or has this decision already been made? Don't we need to be held to our own district standards? Yes. With our literacy, the same way you wanted to be thorough in selecting the best for our district literacy. The school board asked for a little bit more, a pilot of the materials chosen by our esteemed group of MPSD professionals. Well, we need to do the same thing for the most important positions in our district leaders. We need to take the time to make sure this is done correctly. I am urging the Board of Education to follow through with the preferred process of involving all stakeholders in choosing the best candidates for leadership of our district. As part of this process, we should keep our practice of hosting meetings for staff members and members of the community to evaluate potential candidates. Please follow through with open, honest communication, a community-involved search of the best persons available to lead our district into a brighter future. I'm asking the board to take more time, use transparency, follow best practices to fill the offices of superintendent and assistant superintendent. So please, do what is fair, do what is right, and do what you promised.
Okay, our next person is Diane Schwartz.
Oh, my name is Diane Schwartz. I live at 1407 South 23rd Street in Manitowoc. I'm here because I'm concerned about the education of our children and their futures. I'd like to welcome the new board members. We're glad you're here. Thank you for donating your time and energy to improving the education of our children. I'm pleased that general meetings are open to the public and everyone is encouraged to offer their views. Additionally, allowing board members to enter schools unannounced is wonderful. The ability to observe classrooms can give perspective they may not have had. I recently attended a board meeting where reading for 90 minutes a day was recommended. It was my impression that some individuals thought that might be difficult to achieve. Since reading and grammar are two of the most important skills a child must have to succeed, we should work to make 90 minutes a reality. These skills are necessary to fill out an application, write a resume, or work in the real world. Everyone from city employees to construction workers, waitresses, doctors, and architects must be able to read to do their jobs. Reading also opens the world of art, literature, and history, among other things. It is essential to success. In closing, strong emphasis should be placed on the fundamentals to ensure that children can succeed as adults. Thank you.
Here, next person is Rick Nelson. Okay, then our next request is by Sulin Moore.
Good evening. Sulin Moore, live at 5106 Scenic Court here in Manitowoc. I would like to say it's so refreshing to see board members and a superintendent who aren't satisfied with the status quo. the group of dedicated people who have tackled the discipline issues and come up with new ideas. And every bit as important, a group who has recognized that the relatively woke curriculum that has let our children down needs to be replaced with real learning, reading skills being a priority. I heartily endorse Mr. James File and his leadership for our new superintendent. Thank you.
Our next presenter is Ryan Hansen.
Ryan Hansen, 1125 North 18th Street. I want to once again voice my concerns about the lack of process, or at least the lack of a transparent process in this board's decision-making about matters of curriculum. I, like many others in the community, was very impressed by the excellent presentation by the MPSD Literary Resource Adoption Group last week. My children have had the privilege of being served by no fewer than 4 of the members on that committee. And let me say, they are excellent teachers and gifts to our district and our community. I wish I had the time to go into detail about the extra time and effort my son's 2nd grade teacher went to during the very challenging COVID year to creatively engage his learning and challenge him to grow in his love for reading and his thirst for learning. So a big thanks to Mrs. Heidemann, truly an excellent teacher in our district. The presentation was clear about the process that they went through, how they identified the weaknesses of the current curriculum and what the teachers, the ones who are in the classroom each and every day, identified as the needs that they are seeing as they engage our students. Their presentation showed how they vetted several curriculums and identified what they think will best equip our teachers to serve the students that they know. Again, as was stated, there were over 450 years of teaching experience collectively represented in that group. These are people who have pursued education, many at master's degree level, and who are in our students' classrooms each and every day. How many on this board have that kind of specialized training to look at curriculum, not just at a superficial level, but at the granular level that they do, knowing the ins and outs of what resources will be effective and which ones won't? I know I certainly don't have that kind of training, so I'm happy to defer to the training, experience, and expertise of our hardworking reading and ELA teachers and specialists. So I was a bit disturbed that the curriculum committee wanted to pull back on the process for the stated reason of seeing how it works with the pilot school program. What dismayed me further, however, were the comments that the school reform overhaul might be, quote, 2 schools or 10 schools. Who knows? The fact that such a drastic overhaul can be spoken of in such a cavalier manner at this point in time, where we are now, seems out of whack. When the coming school year is quickly approaching, the fact that this board is all too casual about how many schools might be going through a major disruption seems, to put it lightly, a bit off. It seems to me that things are running on parallel tracks right now. We have the careful and clear year-long collaborative and deliberative process of the literary resource adoption. And we have the opaque, hasty, top-down plans from the board and the interim superintendent. In my opinion, this top-down mode of leadership, without collaboration from most other stakeholders in the district, is not the recipe for success. It seems to me that if we are going to pump the brakes on anything, it would be making such drastic changes to 2 or maybe 10 schools until after we have done a careful and collaborative national search for our next permanent superintendent. We should rather move forward with confidence, letting the community look into this curriculum, but move forward in the process with Into Reading, knowing that over 70% of the adoption group identified that as what the district and our students need. It comes down to this. Do we trust our educated and hardworking teachers and experts, or do we not? The way this board chooses to move forward will speak volumes.
I'd like to invite Chris Casey to come forward.
Hi, good evening. I'm Chris Casey. I reside at 3202 Goss Lake Road in Manitowoc. And I'm not going to talk for very long. As our nation prepares to celebrate our great national holiday of Thanksgiving, I thought it appropriate to offer some words of thanks. Thanks for wisdom, the wisdom of the electorate, our fellow citizens, the stakeholders who took time to research and vote to wisely change course and elect you. For courage to call out the failures of past administrations. For strength of your characters and convictions to follow the signal and not the noise of those who want to continue the failed ideas of the recent past. Your dedication to the students, to their success scholastically, and their future endeavors as contributing members of society. We give thanks for those who oppose you, for their ability to expose themselves, their failed ideologies, and to make clear the stark differences and the possible solutions. To put in focus whose interests are really being served. 1 year ago, the public did not know how poor our children's reading proficiency is. Mr. File has been willing to make achievement a focal point of community discussions against the ill winds of others. Thank you, Mr. File. I give thanks to we the people, the taxpayers, who fund this organization. For it is upon our shoulders, hard work, and fruits of our labors, that without which none of this is possible. So thank you to the sovereign that make Manitowoc great. God bless you. God bless your families. Your efforts and willingness to serve. Let's make Manitowoc Public Schools great again. Happy Thanksgiving, and I thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
The next person is Jason Johnson, 314 North 8th Street, Manitowoc, Wisconsin, and he couldn't be here, and so Tony Blastelica will read what he submitted.
Partisanship. In the last year, I have witnessed an undue level of political angst that has surrounded our board, dividing our district and all but incapacitating the ability to work together as professional adults should be capable of doing for the betterment of our district, period. I have witnessed an older gentleman serving the board with legal documents, only to have the local media display their bias and exaggerative nature with sensationalist propaganda meant to vilify the sincere efforts of an equal member of this community. I have witnessed grown men and women behaving at a maturity level akin to the high school students they profess to care about, bickering and clamoring over each other in efforts that display a foundation in selfish partisanship instead of genuine concern, not only for the students in this district, but for the future of our community in general. I have listened as individuals that complain about ineptitude and inequality display their own ineptitude and thinly veiled hatred for this board and anyone who does not endorse such a malignancy of character, as they continually snicker, interrupt, and spend incredible efforts purely based in ego, personal bias, and obsessive partisanship that fails even to take into account the crumbling efficacy of our own curriculums and instead only focuses on the lack of ability to see past one's own nose. We need to set better examples for our children. We need to practice respecting others as we wish to be respected. We need to look past our differences and focus upon our common denominator of concern for our community. Everyone in this room is here because they care. Regardless of personal differences, we care. The members of the board care. People that cannot be here tonight care. The superintendent cares. All of the care in this room should equate to an absolutely amazing team effort that will benefit our students for years to come. And it starts by recognizing and appreciating this concern that we all share. I'm writing in support of our district, our board, and especially our interim superintendent, who has done an amazing job at ignoring the above mentioned hatred and partisanship that only serves to stagnate our district, instead focusing on improving metrics as he has successfully accomplished in other districts. The efforts of everyone in our community that cares to put the time into it and to do so is a resource we need to absolutely take advantage of together as a team for the betterment of our district and the futures of our students. We can do a lot of good with the people in this room. The leadership of our district has the ability to affect real and beneficial change, especially with the support of our unified community. Without that support and mutual regard, we are further failing our students. We need to get behind our board, and we could really utilize the experience and guidance of Superintendent File, as his previous success and guidance up to this point, in my humble opinion, is exactly what we need to come together for our district. Thank you.
Okay, and Ryan Phipps is next.
My name is Ryan Phipps. I live at 2810 Lambert Lane. I just want to thank the board. What you guys are enduring isn't fair. It's not acceptable. I'm not going to talk to you as a smooth talking lawyer. I'm not going to talk to you as a teacher that, you know, fights the battle every single day. But I'm going to talk to you as, you know, somebody that loves and cares about this community. I've had a construction company for about 20 years. In that 20 years, I've been through about 30, 40 employees, most of them young men. Most of them can't read a tape measure. Most of them can't read a book. And I've been pulling my hair out for the last 20 years trying to teach and train these young men to be productive members of our community. I start with the very basics. We pull out a tape measure, we try to measure a board. Most of these people are 18, 19 years old, can't measure a board to cut it. And most of them graduate from this area. So no matter what we agree or disagree on, is that we have to come to the understanding and the knowledge that there's some problems. We're not doing that good. And, you know, I may have one solution, you may have another, if third person might have another solution, but why don't we try working together? You know, which has been difficult. I've been coming to these meetings for a couple of years now, and it's been very difficult. Myself and my brother, we've got active and involved because we truly care about this community. I'm a graduate of this school district. Many of my coaches and teachers are sitting in this very room. I played a lot of sports here, so has my brother. Like, we have an invested interest. I mean, what I'm experiencing in the field isn't a lie. That's what I'm experiencing. I had a coach one time that said to me, you know, that umpire made a bad call. And he was kind of yelling at him. The umpire turned and looked straight in the coach's eye and said, I'm doing the best job I can. I've always remembered that. And that's always stuck with me. If we don't want to divide our school district, let's try to work together. And both sides are guilty of it. I mean, I see it. But you can't say things are good. You can't say things have been good. So maybe we should try a different approach. Maybe we should try some different ideas. So I just want to say thank you. You have my support and please, keep fighting for the children, the parents, and our community. Thank you.
Marilyn Wire.
I have been an observer, either in person or online, of all of the school board meetings for the past 3 years, and have never seen such transparency, not only from our new superintendent, between all school board members, but also to teachers, students, parents, and most of all, to the public. This superintendent has dug in from day one to identify and find solutions to our failing schools. He has worked endless hours with our school board to find the best solutions, looking deeply into Success for All and now ELA. He has been working directly with the principals, associate principals, deans, and student leaders to find the direction to take to aid in the well-being and literacy of our students so they can grow up and be successful in life. What great goals to achieve. This includes good curriculum choices to achieve these goals. There's a lot of noise from a few on the other side who are in favor of keeping the same old direction of the previous years, which were obvious failures. They had their chance, and it has only led to the yearly decline over past years, without even making any positive change while they were there. Under their ideas, we would only see further decline. Why didn't they make changes years ago, before it got so bad? It's now they think they know better. The last superintendent and ousted school board members made terrible choices without input from parents, who were screaming for parents' rights to have a say in the education of in the education of their children. COVID being a prime example. They had no code of conduct, and children who wanted to learn were not able to learn. They acted like they owned our children, and their methods of educating our children only prevented them from obtaining a good education. This will affect them for a lifetime. Our current graduates aren't required to submit ACT or SAT scores any longer to get into UW colleges. Is it because they would not pass these tests to the college's previous admission standards? Wow. So when it comes to the new school board and this great superintendent, we couldn't be prouder that they are here. People open your eyes and see the accomplishments already made as far as behavior and the research for the best literacy program and curriculum. Those on the other side have no right to complain. MPS failed our children miserably in the past years under their control. It certainly would be the end of our children achieving their maximum ability to be successful in life. In conclusion, Superintendent File and current school board members, keep up the great work and don't let the other side discourage you. We're so happy you're all here.
Next is Jean Wire.
I'm Jane Wire, 6300 Hartnett Lake Road. I'd like to address a couple of things that came up. One is the letter that was written by the 5 former
Presidents.
That's who they were. That's right. And I agree that the most important job of the school board is to hire the right superintendent. There's no question about it. Most important thing that you can do is hire the right person. Where I've got a little bit of a problem is the process that they talked about. They talked about having this be a group decision to include administration, not only the school board, but administration, teachers, students, parents, business leaders. I can't imagine how that process would work. There's absolutely no way that it could work in my mind. And I think if they did it before, if they actually did do that before, how did that work out for them? Certainly didn't work out very well. I mean, take a look at what happened. We ended up with issues 2016, 17, 18, and so on. We had problems. So most important thing that we can do is to hire the right person. In addition to that, the board also makes an assessment of the superintendent on an annual basis. Now, are they going to include that whole group of people? It doesn't seem like that process makes any sense at all. It truly doesn't. So I urge the school board to move forward and make this decision and do it as elected leaders of the community. Second thing, there seems to be some concern about the speed of change. Take a look at where we are. Came up at a previous meeting about how change was so important and the speed of change was so important. And the reason why is because when you've only got a 25% effective rate of reading in a third grader, that's a problem. So speed of change, really important. One last thing. There seems to be a thought that this is not a business. I tend to agree. I can see that this isn't a business. But there are a lot of aspects of business that have to be incorporated into this. And it's just important that you as a board continue to do what you're doing. And I fully support what you're doing, okay? And to drive forward to a proper conclusion, because the product that we've got is education for our youngsters. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Rebecca Wilensky.
Hi, Rebecca Wilensky, 6626 Newton Road. I'm a parent of a student. Many of these people, probably all of those people, have no kids in the school district. Many of these people, almost all, do. Who do you want to listen to, the taxpayer or the parent? Shouldn't we listen to the parents when they're concerned about their own kids? I'm concerned about my kid, not our kids, like these people are saying. It's not your kids, it's my kids and every other parent, not yours. Your kids are done, they graduated. Okay, moving on. There's a culture of fear in the schools, and the school board is actively facilitating that fear. There are teachers and staff members afraid to speak up for fear of losing their jobs. There are children attending schools afraid to speak to their teachers about real life problems at home for fear that teachers are going to be mandated to call their parents. These are the same kids that fear physical abuse at home if their parents are contacted. And there are parents afraid to voice their concern because school board members have been mocking them, belittling them, and ignoring them for disagreeing with and citing real concerns for the vast changes that have been proposed. Those changes will affect real people, not just dollars. These are real kids, my kids. I care about that because I have a child in this school district. And you're not listening to the parents who have children in the district. These are the parents. Listen to us. If you care about our schools, which honestly is questionable with the assessment and the track record of this board and the plans you're making, you'll listen to me and many other parents and educators who are telling you that the things you're doing is not helping our kids. It's not. It's making things scary for them and us. We're terrified of the things you're doing. It's terrifying. I can't even believe that you think it's a good idea. I don't get it. I don't get it. After this highly disruptive years of COVID, our kids deserve more stability, not complete chaotic changes to the structure of their school day, to the curriculum, losing trusted educators and administrators, and bringing in total strangers who have no investment in this community. I went to this community for school. I was born here. I graduated here. I had a family here, and I sent my children here because when I went to school here, it was one of the best districts in the state. Yes, there's been failures in the past. Nobody wants no change. Nobody wants no change. We all want change. We just don't want instant change. We want change with research, facts, data, provable change. Don't jump to the first thing that's put on your plate. We need to research and let the educators guide us. Teachers don't trust you. Parents don't trust you. Maybe some taxpayers do because they're going to have more money in their pocket. That is not the way you should make your decisions. A vast amount of people in this community do not trust this board. Vast amount. Some of the fringe followers of the new board members like to belittle us for wearing our shirts and coming to meetings and giving public input, calling us the few. I've sold hundreds of these shirts. I have sold hundreds of these shirts. So I don't care how many are here tonight, they're on backs of hundreds of tax-paying citizens who aren't, maybe they're not here, but they're wearing them. So they support what I'm saying here. And if you want to pretend like there's 5 of us, pretend away. That's fine. Hundreds more who send us messages and beg us to help because they're afraid to address you. I'm not afraid of any of you. And I will give you my opinion online, even though you call me pathetic, even though you tell me to shut up, even though you say my opinions are crazy. I'll still address you online, even though you block me after I do so. I'm happy to tell you that there's still time to turn this around, believe it or not. Pump the brakes and let the parents and the educators be heard. When you meet in private and you make sweeping changes without allowing time for vetting, review of the curriculum, interviewing for positions, it is deceptive and we don't trust you. So now we're supposed to put faith in your choices when you're not showing us good faith. It's not a trustworthy board at this point. And we're all supposed to come together and work together. Well, then build some trust. That's what we need. Why are you rushing to create positions and fly in total strangers from other states, but you're completely ignoring lifelong teachers, parents, and residents of this community, online, in email, in public address, ignoring us, no response. And when we do get response, it's belittling, it's name calling, it's poo-pooing, it's telling us we're nothing burgers. I'm sick of it. I'm a parent, I have a child in this district, and I deserve to be heard. I deserve to have my opinion heard. And everybody else who is does too. It's just so frustrating. I implore you to listen to us. You've come in hot with your torches blazing, like you're trying to burn this district to the ground. That's how I feel. I see the changes being made and I think you're trying to destroy everything I love about this community and this school district. It's going to be gone, totally destroyed. So somebody can save money on their property tax. And where are our kids going to go to school then when it's all gone and destroyed? Who's going to teach them when they all get fired and leave? Who's going to want to live here after that? Nobody's going to pay your taxes then. No one's here. Why are you doing it? I just want to know why. Is it because you believe in your Christian beliefs or your political beliefs, or do you truly think that you're making the right decisions? It's scary. Our kids deserve better, don't they? Mine do. And it's time to stop the madness and start working for us and our kids, not against us.
The next speaker is Stacy Eck.
My name is Stacy Eck, and I live at 2132 Hunters Ridge Court. I'm a parent of young elementary students in the districts, so the decisions that are being made today will affect my family for the next 10 years. My family and I are very supportive of public schools. I volunteer weekly at our school, and I see firsthand how amazing the staff is and what a positive and supportive community they have built for the students. I'm worried that current decisions will affect this. I would like to voice my concerns over the board not having started to conduct a proper search for a full-time superintendent. I understand that there is discussion of this starting in January, and I'm hopeful that this is the case. Mr. File was selected to serve as the interim for a one-year term in order to provide the board sufficient time to conduct a proper search for a full-time superintendent. If the board does not conduct a proper search and instead offers Mr. File the permanent position, this goes against the promises made to the public and to the employees of MPSD. Along those lines, I have concerns over the restructuring of staff. Why is an interim superintendent being allowed to completely restructure the main office, eliminate administrative positions, and recommend his personal choice for the newly created position of assistant superintendent? Typically, an interim superintendent wouldn't be doing these things unless the school board's intention is to keep him on as the permanent superintendent. The board is not acting with the transparency to the MPSD staff or to the public, and I find this concerning. As I recall, the newest board members ran their spring campaigns with promises of transparency, which appears to have been forgotten.
Okay, and the last person we have is Rick Nelson. Okay. All right, we will close public input. Thank you for everybody for being present to talk. Okay, the next item on the agenda is our consent agenda. And is there anything that needs to be taken off by any board member for further discussion? Okay, seeing none, I will take a motion and a second, or looking for a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda.
Motion. I'll second.
Okay, and any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, consent agenda is approved. The next item that we have is the personnel report. And there were several positions on there. And I would need a motion and a second to approve the personnel report.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on anything on the personnel report? Okay, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. And the next is our Success for All update. And we do have a request for the Success for All out-of-state travel request to send educators to Steubenville, Ohio to seek more information about the program. We do need a motion and a second to approve that out-of-state travel request.
I'll motion for that. Second.
Okay, any discussion about that?
Yeah. So as far as the activities of the staff at the at this endeavor, could you maybe speak to some of what the activities that they're planning to do
Well,
in this
they'll-
endeavor?
Yes, they will be meeting with staff to discuss their implementation. They'll be seeing it firsthand. They'll be walking the classroom, seeing how things perform in there. They have questions that we have started with some of our virtual meetings. You know, where we had over 100 participants raise questions. We've got about 20 pages of questions and answers. We're still looking to resolve some more. There are some things that will be decisions not that are made by SFA, but by the district in terms of how they might want to implement that if we were to go down this pathway. So all of this is trying to get a deeper understanding in terms of what this program, what this model, what this post-school reform, a systems type of approach might do here in terms of elevating achievement levels. So it's again, gathering firsthand knowledge, to be able to do that, even though they've had some precursor to that by actually meeting with those staff in a virtual way.
Okay, and then another kind of follow, so is on top of that, what role do the people that are going to be doing this trip, what role do they have in these two schools?
So they're all in terms of leadership role. So quite often you'll have our school districts, rather than always pulling all the teachers together and staff, but to be able to collaborate on some things or to plan about some things that they've been like looking at or integrating or whatever. They work with that leadership team to do some of the groundwork. So the people who will be participating are from those leadership teams.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question or discussion at all? Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, the next item is our strategic plan update. There wasn't anything new that came up. We're still on track to have that presented to the board prior to our December meeting. And the next item that is on the agenda is the municipal baseball field requested cost estimates and information. And did anyone, I know Carrie's not here, did you want to talk about that, Chris? Are you looking for a motion here on this?
Yeah, at the last time we spoke, there were questions about, before we say, yes, let's move forward, what kind of costs are we looking at? What's the condition of some of those things? So the information I provided to as much as I could forecast and get from the city and other vendors, that information is provided for your information. So there's, I think that answered just about everything there was to, as far as future projected costs. There was one thing that I didn't put in there that I learned from Angela, and that is to add that property to our insurance would be about $2,000. So
A year? Annual?
annual, yeah, it's an annual. With that, if there's no question specific about costs, I think the next step is to determine what the school board would like to do with the city's offer to give that facility to us. And I fully recommend that we do accept that and make the next steps to be able to do that.
I had a question about the lights. It says here that they've been replaced in the last 10 years. Is that all of them, some of them?
All of them.
All of them have been replaced? Thank you very much for answering that.
Colin?
As far as the overall cost over time, I know you said you're not going to have what those future costs of it are. But is this cost in entirety upon acquiring the property? Is this anticipated to be next year that we would have these costs, or is this when are some of these costs planning to be put on your budget?
Well, some of the ones I have a timeline on, 3 to 5, 5 to 7, things like that. And then the consumables that were supplies, that's like an annual. I thought I had that identified.
I might have missed that. Sorry.
I apologize for that, but those were like the chalk, the diamond dry, the Pro Mix, the, clay for the batter's box. Some of those consumables that are consumed every year. And then, like I said, it was sort of hard to determine, to put a price tag on the labor that's like a really super soft cost, as opposed to some of the supplies that we would purchase.
Yeah. Some of those expenses you already have currently on your budget bill, right? Like obviously you're gonna have diamond dry anyways.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, we work with the city on that.
Okay, so right now, is there an expense that I guess what I'm asking is do you expect that you're now going to have or purchase more or something as a result?
For the labor for the summer program, that was something that we did last year for the first time. I think that was estimated around $13,000.
Okay.
The supplies, the diamond dry, that will be an annual cost. That's in addition and above.
Right.
Because the city still owned it last summer, They gave me the information, but I don't believe I received a bill yet.
Okay.
I don't know that I will expect to receive one, but so that would be above and beyond it, you know, immediately for this summer.
Stacy.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, I did some math and I have to be honest, I don't like it. I'll be just really forthright. When we're talking about owning municipal fields, the cost that you estimated for a one-time cost, things that need to be updated are more than $500,000. $507 million. No, sorry. that'd be
70,000.
Sorry, that's my bad. That would be really extraordinary. And the upkeep annually is almost 50,000. So over a 10-year period, we would have over $1 million into the field. And then I'm assuming then things will start needing to be replaced again. I mean, I don't know what we spend in our other sports. $1 million. That's a lot of money when we have a lot of things to take care of, the things that we already have. And when we're talking about trying to do a lot academically, I just can't in good conscience vote for this when we have so much to do academically and in other areas, like I said, that we already own, the upkeep of our historic buildings and another $1 million for a baseball field. I struggle with it. So, I mean, I want our players to have the best field possible, but it just seems to me that there has to be other opportunities and places to play. And I know others will see things differently, but that's my take on it at this point. So,
Is there a backup plan if this property is not to where they would be playing? Yeah, if for some reason this doesn't move forward tonight, is there a backup plan to where the players would play then?
The city has not divulged to me if we don't accept it, what they would plan to do next. I don't know if they have another person that would be in a position to accept it or if they would put it up for sale. I've not been made aware of what that looks like. I can tell you, probably I could speak a little bit more about the ramifications if we wouldn't, that it would really, and Coach is here, he could certainly speak firsthand, that, you know, we rely on the city for a number of other facilities that we use. And this facility has not received the due diligence with maintenance and care, and it's, you know, and it's in the condition it's in because of tight budgets, both labor and things like that. So try not to blame the city, but just rather identify the facts that it's tough to maintain everything. That field has never been in this good a shape, thanks to our efforts this past summer. And to not accept it or to move forward with it would be a huge drawback for the kids program, that especially well, all of the kids, but primarily the varsity who plays on that field when they're playing home. And all the other teams that play on that when the varsity is away, another team is playing on that. So I don't know what it would look like. We would make do with some of the other sites, like 35th, which is not anywhere near what municipal baseball is with a grass infield.
Because the city at any point in time said that they would remove access if we did not accept.
That they've never mentioned anything like that to me.
Yeah.
I would propose a motion to move forward with the transfer of the property. However, I would like to see a property management plan from our director in-house with a timeline of improvements. Some of the costs that we were assessed could be brought out in the future years. So like Chris had said previously, the field is in the best conditions it's been probably in the last 5 years, maybe even 10. So financially, I think it's a good decision to acquire it now. However, I would like to see, like I said, a management plan from our director of how we're going to move forward with those costs that are going to come eventually.
So we can look forward, carefully. However, we do know what we're seeing ahead of us. So I would make a motion to accept the transfer of the property of municipal field to Maricopa Public School District.
I'll second that motion. And the reason is because I really don't want to see the effect that it would have on our varsity team if we didn't. And the reason being is because everybody is concerned with academics and things like that, but a lot of people are concerned with extracurricular activities. And this is a huge decision to be made. And I understand that it's going to cost a little bit more money, but hopefully with some planning, like Matthew said, in the motion, we can try to spread it out a little bit, because we don't know what they're going to do. That's the thing. If we don't accept it, the city could very well say, well, we're selling it to Mickey D's and they're going to put a McDonald's or whatever it may be. I don't know. But the point is, our options for moving them around will affect the other teams, and then they will have to move. And I can't imagine. I don't know. It seems like it's important enough to go through with it, and hopefully with some management, we can thin out the cost, especially of the initial acquisition. So I second that motion.
Kathy?
Okay, I just want to shout out some of the breakdown of what we're talking about. First of all, it may be a great field in the best condition that's been in 5 years, but we're just talking about the field. And who's done all that work? We have, right?
Right.
The city hasn't. We're talking about $30,000 for a scoreboard. We don't know about lights yet down the future. Bleachers, $60K, PA, $10,000, and $400,000 for a parking lot. It's not a good gift. If I asked you to give $1 million to our music program, $1 million for science, I mean,
Well,
are we doing that?
There are certain costs that will be counterbalanced. One of the things, the first thing you mentioned was the $30,000 for the school board. We've already got people that are going to be donating. It's not going to cost us anything. So, I mean, for advertisements and things like that, that they, different local businesses and things that, I mean, this is what it's going to cost. Yes. But we are definitely looking at other ways to absorb that cost. So, I mean, yeah, the hard number of saying $30,000 is a hard one to swallow, but we probably won't see any of that.
I mean, I'd be good if we could do something like we did with the JFK, right? Where there's people who come in and donate and that kind of, but right now we can't count on that. And there's not a maintenance plan in place. I want to see those things ahead of time. That's just me.
I understand.
Angela, if we did nothing else to the property, meaning all these kind of high dollar items, what would the breakdown be? Any estimate on yearly? How much do we budget now for this property a year, and how much would be increased?
Well, I think in the memo, we had talked about like a $13,000 commitment with labor for the last summer that would be carried forward. That's, you have your little expense on the property short of, what we've done just this past year in recent years. So we really haven't done much. But we did that because of the condition of the field.
Annually, what we does, my staff would go to facility to facility, whether it's girls softball, boys baseball, and the city would mow the facility, the grass. My guys would drag the diamonds, chalk it, do the batter's box chalk, prep it for games, and then leave. So we've done that for years.
And is that the 13,000, Chris?
No,
or is
the 13,000, it was to staff it for summer baseball.
Okay.
Because our commitment was the first, whenever spring training, weather warmed up and they could get out to the field. Then when that happened, then we would be out there prepping it until basically graduation, till June. And after that, we wouldn't go back to that site until the following spring. Because if we owned it, then we would be mowing it in the season that we didn't used to mow it. Okay. So that would be, if you want to call it about an additional. So we would be doing all up until December or November with aeration and you know, and putting the field to bed, so to speak.
Okay.
And then the following spring, we would have some tasks to do to make sure that it's up and ready for first day of outside practice.
How much do we budget now? I mean, how much is our budget right now for the field?
0.
Okay,
I mean, it's included in the labor,
okay.
which doesn't, you know, so that doesn't hit my
Like,
budget.
so, right, so the supplies though here for the chalking and.
That will hit our budget for next
Okay,
summer.
so prior to this, all of these expenses were
just
covered by
labor.
city.
Yep, it was
Okay,
just, we provide the labor and that was all.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, Colin.
So, I'm I've been a very vocal opponent to this project since I heard about it. I didn't like the fact that it was continually moved forward upon. I was on the Buildings and Grounds Committee. And you know, it's not that I hate baseball. Actually, I played 9 years of baseball, never to the level of Mr. Phipps there, but or any of our student athletes. I just played a lot of baseball as a kid and I enjoyed it. I'm not a sports guy either, so that being a sidebar, to understand that, you know, I like baseball is actually huge. But the thing that I'm going to here is we have $500,000 in expenses that we're looking to take on in a time when we're looking at a great deal of expense to our district that we're going to have to go to and explore how we solve our budget. Our budget is, you know, we spoke about it in prior meetings. We have some issues, and $500,000 is a very large expense to be taking on, especially when we have this possibility of still using this facility. There's nothing being said that the city is going to say no to us and using it in the future. Maybe we pick up some of these expenses down the road, but to acquire a property and then all of a sudden be on the hook for all the elements of it in an era when we are tight budgeted, I think is very the wrong move. So I'm going to be voting no against this.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Colin. I understand completely about the number $500,000. That's why I would say that the parking lot probably hasn't been touched in about 15 years. And if we chose not to, from a financial standpoint, we could repair it or Band-Aid it for another 15 years if we would choose to do that. So if you take the $300,000 to $400,000 expense of the parking lot out of it, it becomes more of a manageable acquisition. Another point I wanted to make, and I would not start on the stomp support of the city. However, the city did replace the fence on the south side of the property last year as well. Chris kind of highlighted that at the committee level. Is there anything else that the city has kicked in that you'd like to speak of at this moment that I can't think of?
The water wheel, the irrigation system that was there, they said if we want it, we can take it. They don't have use for it. So, I mean, that was a big help with some of the items that would normally be there, like some of the rakes and brooms and, you know, supplies and things like that. But as far as capital improvements or repairs, basically the fence was the,
So I'd like to speak to the next point about sweat equity with the community and the stakeholders of the facility, the coaches, the people the players that have been there, that have put the time and effort in to keep it the way it is at this point. Obviously, it did need updating, and we did spend outside money last year. However, it was the sweat equity of the community that has got it to this point today. It's been mismanaged by the city. Nobody would disagree with that, but obviously we all have a lot on our plates at this time. So I can understand why you would vote no, Colin. I really do. I understand that. However, I think the coaching staff, the community would like to have hope and try to figure out how to solve that issue. So I would be voting yes for that, obviously, because I made the motion, because I believe in the community and I believe in the coaches that they can take the responsibility on, that they haven't done it already. Even if they don't support some of the things that I say, I would still say that they were ready to take the responsibility on if they're going to be involved. So that's why I would be voting yes tonight.
Okay, lastly, Coach, would you like to address this issue at all? Sorry to put you on the spot, but just if you wanted to weigh in.
Yes, I would.
Okay. Come on up.
So I'm Bruce Steinbecker. I'm the head baseball coach at Manitowoc Pumpkin. I'm in my 26th year of coaching baseball in this community. And I'll just speak to what our kids deserve. Most high schools provide their baseball teams baseball fields. The truth of the matter is MPSD hasn't provided a facility for our boys in 75 years. We have not owned a piece of property for our kids. We respectfully, through the efforts of the city, school district, my kids, my parents, my coaches, thousands of volunteer hours, literally kept us to the point where we could still just play on our field. Our field was in such horrible condition that we were one season away. If the improvements don't happen, we don't play a single home game in Manitowoc. We would have played 26 away games because we didn't have a suitable playing field for our boys. If we give this field back to the city, we will be in that exact situation 5 years from now. That's a promise. We, for the last 26 years, have played on the worst field in our conference. And it's not even close. The worst. Our kids deserve better, people. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? We spent $1.2 million on a football field. We spent $600,000 on a JFK. We have a $1.3 million pool. How many dollars has MPSD spent in baseball in the last 75 years? We have a beautiful $5 million auditorium. It's irresponsible. Our boys deserve way better. Way better. Our catcher could go right now and go get a foul ball and get his leg stuck underneath the fencing.
Coach, what do you, out of the improvements, which one of these do you think need to be immediate? Like you talked about the fence.
Yeah.
Or what things on this list? Because I see, 10 years or 3 years, 5 years. Are there certain things that absolutely for next season have to be done?
No, the improvements that were made last summer allows us to play baseball for another 5 years.
Okay.
It does. There's nothing that needs to be fixed in 9 months for us to be able to play baseball.
Okay.
But on a side note, we could not play last year because we had 2 to 3 inches of water standing on the field after 2 to 3 days of sunlight. It's bad, you guys. It's embarrassing. It's not safe. And do you want your kid? Does your kid deserve a little bit better? I mean, these are my boys. These are all my sons. I'm doing this for 26 years. And I got little kids the age of 9 who get to play on an amazing facility. And they're so prideful. That word means a lot to me, by the way, prideful. I pick weeds before our games so the kids, so we look like the other people. You guys, you just, I didn't even want to talk because this is very near to my heart. And I love my players, and they deserve this. They deserve this. They deserve a place to play. We were one season away. If if Chris doesn't do what he did, we don't play a single home game. We play 26 games away from our facility. And how bad do we all look then? MPSD baseball players can't play a single game at home. Why? You're about to answer that question 5 years from now. If you give it back to them, they don't want it. Trust me. City does not want the field. They will bulldoze it. And then there is no other option. Somebody talk about what are the options? There are no other options. Or go build us a $1.8 million facility. That's what it costs. Build a baseball field.
So part of your feedback, here. You alluded to the fact that there is probably gonna just bulldoze it. Is that kind of what you've heard?
I just, based on the conversations I've had with the city for years and years and years, I've sat in common council meetings, I've sat in budgeting meetings. It's not a priority for them. So I know they are not gonna put any additional resources into it. And I've had a very good relationship with the city for the last 26 years. And quite honestly, I mean, we partner with them and we do a ton of work to help them out. But they're to the point where it's their budgets can't support it. They don't have the work staff to support it. They feel just as badly as everybody else does. It's just not a priority for them because the amount of users is so small. They've got other things that are just higher on the priority list.
And then 5 years, you're saying a 5-year that you guys can play ball probably 5 years and you would not have expenses. You're foresee some of the tasks that are needed to be done to make this a playable field, 5 years, you can play on it just right now as it is, right?
The actual playing surface?
Right now is it, yeah.
Yeah. Longer if we do the right things.
Okay. Well, then I will just, because I was very vocal about this and I said that I would be voting no. Thank you for the feedback. So I just want to say that I'm really hearing something. So thank you.
I believe you were Matthew's coach too.
It was.
Yeah. I'm sincere. And I feel it and the passion. And that's why I know it's an important thing. We got a lot of stuff on our plate, but this is something we can't overlook.
It's such an extra, in my view. What kind of guarantee can you make or to promote like the dollars and raising funds for this field? Like what kind of commitment does the baseball team and their parents, what can they make? Like, well, that's what I'm saying.
You obviously are blinders.
They're the best fundraisers.
That's a bold question, quite honestly.
It is a bold question, that's right. But I would ask.
I would think that you would know more about our program.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, I want to hear a commitment about having this field and having not just saying we deserve, because those are words, but putting money where the mouth is. Like, can we promote it? Can we raise funds to put in those bleachers and the extra things that are needed?
Sure.
It's not, I'm not even worried about the $50,000 a year, that much annually. That's kind of a small amount of a budget. But when you start adding up to $500,000, that's a whole nother thing. And so I want to hear where, you think the community will rise up and help us out with that. Because just like the city is in budget restraints, you know that since 1992, we've been a conservative spending district and we're in tight arms. So we're talking about expending that much more money right now. It's hard to swallow. So I want to hear.
Yeah.
Could you just, before you answer that question, could you just highlight for me personally, because I honestly don't know, because I've been raising a family, what you've been doing recent last 5 years with the Booster Club and what you've been able to purchase with the Booster Club?
Sure.
Trying to pin you down a little.
Sure. So I was part of a board that raised $2.4 million to put up a complex at Citizens Park. Our recent ones, we constructed a batting cage facility at the facility of a price tag of $25,000, all fundraised by my group. We've put batting cages at Red Arrow, Dewey, Citizens Park. So I don't know if that's enough of a sample size. Yeah, I could keep going.
I'd like to publicly note that I would like to donate to the Booster Club as well.
Do you think that group would be willing to help us out too, to field in some costs?
As long as we feel like we're going to be met halfway. Because I heard before that our budget is on baseball $0. $0 you spend on baseball every year?
No, there's more than that.
Labor. $0 for baseball. What's labor for the football field? What's labor for the auditorium? What's labor for the tennis courts? I bet you it's not $0.
I bet it's not much.
It's not $0.
Right. But we spent more than that last year. I mean, I'm not in a debate about what we're spending on each sport. If we knew, that would be helpful, right? I'm just thinking, like, I'm looking at it through the lens of academics. And I like the JFK. That's the other thing
I
I
know
saw,
what.
by the way, was physical education for anyone who doesn't know, because I enjoyed it. But I just want to hear that there's ways to help fund this besides just drawing from what we have for budget. You know, because
There's
it's
lots
just
of
getting
ways.
sucked dry from a lot of different things.
Matt, I'm wondering if you would amend, a friendly amendment to your motion that, before there are any, that we enter the agreement with the knowledge that we would execute a long-range plan of the things to get it up to where we would like it, right? With bleachers and a nice scoreboard and all those things, that we have a long-range plan, and that we also are provided a funding, that we look at our budget to that. And I know, you know, the foundation has also helped with a lot of our facilities, JFK and different things, and that that we would just, before we enter into any of these big dollar items, that we would do that, but that we would obtain the land with the expenses that we would have, which would be, I'm just guesstimating 50,000 a year. And that these other items would be, what we would want to see prior to that or shortly after is a plan going forward of what that would look like.
So respectfully, my motion was to accept the transfer. However, I wanted a property management plan from within our district done. So I would be asking our director to do that. So that's the motion is actually saying. So I completely agree. And then I asked for a timeline as well of the improvements. So that I am actually tasking our director right now with that motion, what I just said, of that exact thing, in my opinion.
Okay.
So if we could read it back, otherwise I can try.
Was
That makes sense.
funding? You said you wanted a funding plan though too?
So the funding really should be, in my mind, should be a communication between the athletic director, the property, the buildings and grounds director, and then obviously the superintendent. So like, and maybe at a committee level, I would like to get involved with that, but at a full board level, I really don't want to know the nuts and bolts unless, you know, it's purview of that. So what I'm trying to say is that with a good plan moving forward, I understand the stresses of the what Kathy's trying to articulate is that there's a financial turmoil that we're kind of facing, and she's trying to say, how are we going to move forward? And I guess I have the respect of yourself and of the parents of the community to provide you halfway, like you're saying. However, I would like a plan from our director to get us there. So that's why I'm tasking with my motion to have a plan, a management plan within in a timeline of how we can start making those improvements. I would say the most important thing would probably be the scoreboard in the next foreseeable future, and then maybe the holes in the fence. And I bet you'd be a very happy man, and I bet the community would be very happy for the next 10 years. However, to explain that to the other board members right now, to guarantee it, we don't know what's going to happen next week. We don't know what's going to happen next year. So I think that the acquisition of the property would be in the best interest of our district. However, I do understand the financial turmoil. However, it is property, and the property, I believe, is not going down in value. Maybe it will with the looming recession. However, I think the property is probably going to appreciate more. So overall, from a financial standpoint, I understand this commitment over time, but the property asset is valuable to the district as well. So that's my 2 cents. And if anybody would like to contradict me, please do it now.
Matt, I just want to ask one follow-up question. Are you proposing that we see those items, or the committee look at those items prior to signing on the dotted line? Or
no, I'm asking for faith of our directors to do their job when I ask them to do it.
Okay. Any other, Tony?
Yeah, I'd just like to add, hearing all the discussion, all sides, I think raised fair points, but I think to Bruce's point, our kids deserve better. We have an awesome baseball program that's been built up, and the fact that there's even discussion about them possibly not playing at home. I think it's just, we got to figure that out. And if we can't come up with it, the funding internally, then we have to look at external sources. And I think we need to assist with that however we can. So that's my take.
Okay, well, I think we've labored this discussion. So we'll call that to a vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Look, you guys.
Okay, the next item is the sale of district property at 8th and Columbus Streets. And I know that this went from buildings and grounds to thanks, finance and budget. And Angela, I believe finance has made a recommendation to sell the property. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So we didn't do an initial motion and second in the committee, so we would have to do all motions at this point.
Okay, so is there a motion to execute the sale of the property at 8th and Columbus?
I would make a motion to put the property for sale. I don't know if there's an actual price that's been negotiated yet.
Yeah,
So
it's attached.
Okay.
It's attached. The what the
$4,000.
what the buyer, yes, what the buyer has and what Angela's recommendation on the sales. Yes.
So then I would make a motion to accept the property transfer.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion about that?
We're already making games towards the baseball field.
There you go.
Support.
Can we allocate that money to? All right. If no discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay. Okay, so the next item is that we need to create a new assistant superintendent of teaching and learning position. And I would need a motion and a second to approve creating of that new position. Do I have a motion and a second to do that? Colin?
I'll make a motion and,
Is there a second? Okay, any discussion regarding that? Colin, I'll let you speak first.
so the reason that I went, I made the motion was because, a couple different things. There is a question that I do have. I would like to know, if there is a, is this position, how is this position going to be funded as it is a new position? Has that been explored currently? Is this coming from the superintendent's budget? Or is this coming from, because we are bringing aboard a big position here. I just want to ask.
This would be coming from district funds. Again, I proposed a total restructuring. I would look to in the end of a restructuring that somehow I balance cost out, or if there were increased costs, those costs would be closer to the classroom.
Okay. And then the other portion to this is that is there any precedence for any other positions? We a lot of times in our district, and maybe this might be better for Mike, when we do bring aboard a lot of the positions, do we weigh in on any of these positions? I guess I would just like to ask you that. How often do you hear from the board for weighing in on positions?
I'm sorry, Colin, I'm a little bit confused as to what you're asking.
Does the board weigh in on positions for any, does the board weigh in on who we hire for any of the positions?
Well, here's how I usually put it to administrators and staff. The board hires the superintendent hires the administrative team, and the administrative team hires the staff.
Thank you. All right, so the reason for that question, because it seems kind of odd, I should probably know that, right? But the reason that I am bringing that up is, there's been a lot of insinuation as to this position, what it what it means, why we're doing it, etc. And I guess to that statement, we don't hire the people. You know, there was one person, I believe they were a lawyer, it said something about not allowing certain people to be interviewed for the position. We don't deal with that aspect. So it was kind of a frustrating point when that came as a statement that this is how things are. This isn't how things are done. I support the superintendent to bring aboard his team to make the district and his vision of who is in different positions. That's his job. I'm not going to second guess somebody's job. My job is I'm in charge of the superintendent amongst a board. So I wanted to be very upfront, honest, that is the way that this board should be operating. I'm not, as far as the assistant superintendent goes, if he feels that he needs to bring a board assistant superintendent to effectively lead this district, whether interim or permanent, I think that he is definitely in his scope to do so. I'll just leave it there.
Anyone else? Yeah.
You want to go? Sure. I just wanted to make mention that, you know, I wasn't as familiar with everything when the last superintendent came on. However, I've spoken to a lot of people, even Carrie and everybody else have said, when he came on, he did a lot of restructuring and moving around and bringing directors and this, that, and the other thing as well too, but nobody sent a peep. Because that is his job to do. It's not, we're here to support him, but hiring everybody beneath him is all his job. We can recommend, we can, you know, speak with it, but when it comes to it, you know, it's ultimately his decision.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask Mr. Files, do you believe that this is a position you need to be successful in this district?
Without question, I think that I need somebody to assist with elevating the achievement levels, you know, and to ramp this up, and I need somebody with the experience of taking on this type of work before. So yes.
In my opinion, and obviously what the policy says, it's completely within your purview as a superintendent of this district to make employment changes or additions. And I will not ask to be involved in your personnel decisions about who you hire. However, I do get a personnel report every month. If I chose to vote no, I think I can have that ability as an elected official to vote no, but it's not my purview to ask you any more than what I just did to say if you think that's the correct position. So I have no objection, which I shouldn't, because I'm not qualified or supposed to be making those decisions. That's what the district superintendent is supposed to do per policy. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion? Tony?
I'd just like to add, you know, at the end of the day, you know, we're going to hold the superintendent interim or full-time, whatever the case may be, accountable to driving our district forward. And I believe we need to empower that person to make whatever changes they deem necessary to get the job done. So that's my take.
Any other discussion? Okay, so there's a motion and a second to create a new position, the new assistant superintendent of teaching and learning. All in favor? Motion by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. And then we do have sort of a second piece to this, which is to, there's been a candidate that is being recommended by our interim superintendent. And so do we have a motion and a second to approve the second personnel report that would?
Motion.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion regarding that?
I just have a quick question. How long is the contract being offered then?
2 years.
2 years.
Well, it's a little less than 2
Would you
years
like
because it's,
almost a year?
we would have to, you know, look to extended ice we typically would when we're within that time period. To
So
do that.
probably be June
Through-
30th of 2024.
It would be the rest of
Yeah.
this year and next year.
Right.
Yeah.
December, if I could say.
Yep, sure, Mike.
December 5th, 2022 would be the start date. The contract would go through June 30 of 2024. We cannot offer a 2-year contract because of the circumstances of the mid-year hire, but you would also then, as you probably normally do every year, by the end of January, you would be offering administrators a 2-year contract. So this person would get offered a 2-year contract, given that superintendent file recommends that, and then that person would have a 2-year contract subsequently after that. Does that make sense?
Yep. Okay, any other questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor of moving forward on the candidate for the assistant superintendent of teaching and learning, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We have another position that's also on the personnel committee, which is a new special education paraprofessional position at Madison Elementary. Do I have a motion and a second to approve of that new position? And actually that came out of personnel.
Okay.
So we have a motion in the second.
Yeah.
Is there any discussion on that, or Mike, did you want to say anything about that?
I just wanted to say that that did come out of the personnel committee. And what happened here was we ended up with transfer of a couple of special education students to Madison, beginning the school year, early September. And their IEPs were relatively vanilla. And Katie Eichmann decided, and the principal decided, to kind of put some temporary support in there to determine whether the students were going to need more educational support or not. And indeed, after a couple of months, it's been clear that they need additional support. And that's the reason for your consideration tonight of creating that special education paraprofessional position at Madison Elementary.
Okay, any discussion? Yes.
In the current structure, do we have a plan of how we assess the needs of hiring positions? Or are we just kind of putting out fires as they, I'm asking, I want to know.
I can speak to the special education specifics.
Sure.
We have transferring students come in this year.
Makes sense.
We have no ability to anticipate their needs prior to them transferring in. We do staffing in January of every year. So when we have students that transfer into our district in September, October, November, throughout the school year, sometimes they come in with significant needs. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to create a position when we know that there's been a substitute in place to support students at Madison with some pretty significant needs and support the teachers there to meet those needs. So to have this conversation is great. I know Angela and I have had conversations about being proactive in staffing for the future, maybe creating some positions that we would have budgeted for at the beginning in this budget for next year so that we can have a pool in the event that we have these high needs transfer-ins. Our transfer-ins in the last few years have grown significantly, and the needs of the students have become increasingly challenging, and staffing in the spring of the year prior makes that difficult.
Thank you very much.
Colin?
As far as the situation, I know special needs makes up a very large portion of our district. And it also, we tend to hear a lot of discussion from some of the parents in that area as well. Is there other needs that are in this district that other than this position that, I mean, you're foreseeing possibly looking to have filled as well? Are there other, I know you'd said that you're relying on a substitute, so that's kind of why I thought of this question here. Are there other situations that are similar to where you were relying on a substitute for those positions?
Not currently. However, as the school year progresses, we have initial evaluations that happen where we do have right now some general education support staff members supporting students because they've not gone through the due process of the special education referral, which can take up to 90 days. Again, of some young students who are new to our district. So there are needs that need to be addressed continually throughout a school year. And some of those are because of intellectual disabilities. Some of those are emotional behavioral disabilities. We typically, when we're talking about students with learning disabilities or academic needs, we have the ability to to meet those needs, but it's the more significant disabilities that are kind of on either end of the spectrum that we need to sometimes have a plan for that we can't anticipate.
Thank you. And Stacy?
Yes.
Relative to funding of the position, Angela, could you speak to the high transfer needs? Is it called a waiver relative to these situations?
Transfer of service is one tool. I'm not sure if that's maybe what you're referring
Yes,
to.
that's what I'm referring to. Sorry, I didn't have the terminology correct.
Oh, you're good. Transfer of service is something we used for the first time this year in several years, where we, this is a great situation where this student, we will be able, if they change residency from one district to another, we're able to claim the additional costs and add that permanently to our revenue limit. So we have the ability to do that. We'll always have to be agile with special education support needs. And Katie spoke to it very well, just because we don't know when a student's going to show up at in our district that we need to, that we're obligated to serve. So, transfer of service is always a tool that we have. And we do have, the special ed department does a very good job of evaluating their paraprofessional staffing every year and shifting around for different needs. So we've done, I know that firsthand.
And I was just going to say to your question, Matt, and I'm not an expert on this, but historically, what I've come to learn is that we do the staffing. Our administration and our staff and our teachers and everybody gets together to determine what staffing is needed. I think the frustration that I've found, and I think other board members have experienced, is that we don't want to be in that process, but we want to know how many people we need. And so, we've talked about a dashboard. And so I'm hoping with, some goals set for our interim superintendent, also along with our strategic plan, that we would create some of those things so that when some of these issues come to the board, we would know what was going on currently. So, that is my hope. And then the second thing I wanted to say was, special education is it's a different animal in that it's very legalized, and there are certain things that we absolutely have to provide or be in violation of. And so, I think a position like this, unfortunately, sometimes we don't have the luxury to say, I'm sorry, well, we're just not going to fund it. We need to make sure that we're providing this very special population with the things that they need. So that was just one other thing I wanted to say.
I think she answered it perfectly with the enrollment transfers. I mean, obviously things come up. We have to be able to maneuver around. However, in the beginning of the school year, obviously the administration tries to put their best foot forward to have a plan and execute it. So
I would also just like to add with the legal aspects of this. Not only do you have to meet those needs through the IEP process and stuff like this, but we have to recognize there is a significant cost there. And what's important though is the legal thing drives this a lot, and the costs that are not funded in state and federal levels have always fell short of funding the true cost of special education, and that means that comes off the top of general ed. So general ed has to balance that budget to ensure those services are delivered.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, again, only moving forward, as we've talked about changes and things, I only see, with our business director and, Katie spoke to this too, that, our plan is to be more proactive. So that even if we don't even if we don't use the money, it's in the budget so that we can plan for these things, which I think would be helpful. So any other discussion at all regarding this new position? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay. Okay, and then we have, this also came from Finance and the Budget Committee. There is a donation for the Manitowoc Strength and Speed Program at Lincoln High School. And this was brought forward by the committee, so it requires a vote. So is there any discussion about that? And I believe they are iPads is what we were told. that were donated by Freighter Holy Family, is that correct?
Nope.
No,
Bank
Bank
First.
First, okay, thank you, Bank First.
Bank first.
Okay, so Colin has a question.
As far as our foundation, how come the foundation wasn't the facilitator of this one? Is there a difference in how that would be?
Yeah, I mean, we take a lot of donations, and as a district, even though we have the foundation, I mean, the foundation hosts our loan and scholarship program, and then there will be like groups of people, like classes that will do separate fundraising through the foundation. But we have the district, our Fund 21 accounts are specific to special project fundraising. So, and then just we'll receive people calling on a regular basis to say, hey, I'd like to donate this. I'd like to, help contribute this. So it's not that it has to all go through the foundation.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you.
I just want to highlight, thank you very much to, our community,
Bank
Bank First, obviously, for $2,800 essentially to our district. And our strength and training, we'll much appreciate the technology improvements.
Okay, any other further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Okay, then, another thing that also came from finance and budget that was brought forward from the committee that needs discussion and vote is the depositories of district funds. There was a form in there that showed you of all the district depositories that we have. And so we do need to approve that. Is there any discussion regarding that? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, and brought forth from curriculum, there were several new classes that were proposed. All of those had a motion and a second. And so any discussion at all regarding any of the new course proposals, and these would all be at Lincoln High School?
I wanted to pull out the music history and talk about it for a minute here. Just wanted to highlight that the committee wanted to put a 1-year approval of this course in the spirit of trying to facilitate community development of the history department, to try to get the history requirement fulfilled within this course. It's an optimistic goal, but would like to try to see if we can get the history requirement fulfilled within the high school graduation requirements. So we did put a 1-year approval on that course of music history for the creation of it. So wanted to highlight that.
Great, any other discussion? Okay, all in favor of the new courses that will be at Lincoln High School signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, and then we have several out-of-state travel proposals. Let's take the Washington Middle School and Wilson Middle School. Let's take those together. Those were both came out of committee approved. Is there any discussion about that at all? Or a motion in a second. Was there any? Yes.
I just wanted to highlight that Washington and Wilson are 2 different middle schools, used to be junior highs, and some community members wanted both schools had the opportunity to go on the Washington DC trip. So we kind of put that on the forefront to understand that we wanted to make sure both opportunities to both middle schools in our district had the opportunity to go, even if there wasn't a big push from one facility to the other. But we wanted to make sure that both schools, middle school students, had the opportunity to go on this great trip. So I wanted to highlight that.
Okay, I'm going to add to what Matthew was saying
Thank
too,
you.
just so that the public understands too. It's my understanding that that trip was offered at both schools for many, many years, a long time ago. But it fell off at Washington because they didn't have kind of like the teacher support. They didn't have chaperones essentially. So that Washington portion fell off and Wilson continued it. Well, the good news is they now have, was it 10 or 12 people have come forward saying they would love to chaperone. So now it's back on. So now both Washington and Wilson will have that opportunity, which we are very excited about. So
thank you for explaining the details.
Yeah.
Any other discussion about the Washington Middle School and Wilson Middle School, Washington DC Gettysburg trip? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, and then the last out-of-state travel is the track football consortium. Again, that came out of committee. Any discussion about that at all? Okay, seeing none, signify by saying aye if you approve.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, and then also from the curriculum committee came the boardroom of the future. And we had a motion and a second to approve that. Any discussion regarding how the new boardroom would be? Yes.
Yep, I actually want to speak to that.
Okay.
So about a year and a half ago, we started looking into, as a board, upgrading the boardroom because we have so many audio concerns, also visual too, but especially audio. At that time, Superintendent Holtzman had told us it would be about $50,000. And if, for those of you who have been following our meetings and so forth, you know, with the supply chain and so forth, we couldn't get answers, we couldn't get people here, we couldn't get supplies. It was addressed many, many times, but it never came to fruition. I don't believe through anyone's own fault, but we have been fortunate enough to have a gentleman who was hired a couple months ago and who gave us a presentation last week and is able to, he believes he will be able to upgrade the boardroom for $11,000 rather than the 50. So that was really great. That will include multiple microphones instead of just this one. We're hoping to be able to have audio flexibility with showing different parts of the room and including, you know, audio also for those who give public input. So we're pretty excited about the opportunity. I'm sure there will be glitches, so please bear with us when we get that new system in. But we're, well, assuming we pass today, right? But pretty excited about the price point and that something will finally actually happen. So.
Bingo.
Okay, Colin.
So another thing too is, you know, there's also been many items from the public where, you know, they have had, and not saying which viewer or the other, but there's been a very significant response to access to meetings, you know, both virtually and in person. So one, the meetings, you know, this is going to make that meeting better heard, better presented. We won't have, you know, we'll have the ability to pump it out, I believe, right away from the meeting to YouTube, right, Jason? Yes. And so I'm extremely excited about this because I know for the most part, the public has had an issue with this as well. So I'm glad that this is a good solution.
The only thing that I wanted to speak to is, I guess I was really excited when I heard 11 compared to 50.
Oh, yeah.
However, I will say that I made a mistake. I got a little excited. I would, because I made the motion to approve not more than $11,000 of the curriculum. And I would kind of like to see the nuts and bolts or a detailed, you know, estimate. It's been brought to my attention that, you know, where are those expenses kind of going? Some professionals in the field talked to me and said, well, you know, maybe it's not even that much. So I guess what I'm asking, I don't want to slow this down at all, but I would like to see a detailed summary of the expenses for that renovation. I guess that's the only thing that I would like to make. I made a mistake, so I'd like to see that.
And let me just.
So you want to make an amendment to your motion? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I did in committee. I don't know what the motion. I guess yeah.
I mean, I'll second it. It seems very reasonable. Can't you?
I can share a list. We have a detailed list that just was not added to.
Yeah, that's why
but I went and reviewed this with Brady. He can share it with all the directors and stuff, and you know.
Do you feel confident that that's
definitely
the correct amount?
Mm-hmm.
So
yes, I do. And
it is
also
detailed.
we're paying for it
Okay.
with ESSER funds that was set aside when the original estimate came through. So.
So I rescind my amendment.
No, you're good. I just thought it.
I accept your definition, and please send it to me as well.
Yes, I'll share with the whole board.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion?
What about the live streaming of the different committee meetings? Is that part of this or?
It's not, but I know that you want that on a committee agenda, and we can certainly do that, just not today.
Good. I think it's.
And if I don't do it, remind me.
I'm tired of this whole walking and turning up, but that's, so many people are tired of this sound system and they've been tired of it for a long time. I obviously am as well too. It's definitely not a waste of money. So.
Okay, so no other discussion. All in favor of the boardroom of the future updates? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Future.
Okay, and then we are to our superintendent contract. And there's a lot of motions that could come out of this. Does anybody have a motion that they would like to address?
President Sullivan, I'd like to make a motion that we authorize you to begin superintendent contract negotiations with Jim File to encompass the rest of this school year and the 23-24 school year.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. I'd like to, on behalf of Carrie, who cannot be here today, I'd like to read the statement that he wrote to the board. Taking action to appoint James File, the official fully authorized superintendent of Manitowoc School District, without a full, fair, formal, and competitive search is, in my opinion, an act contrary to the promises made by the board to the public and the employees of the Manitowoc Public School District at the time, when James File was selected to serve an interim term of 1 year in order to provide the board with sufficient time and better hiring conditions to enable it to conduct a proper, lawful, open search for a full-time superintendent during the early months of 2023. Taking actions now without conducting such a search not only breaks faith with the public pertaining to that promise, but renders the action and the resulting appointment to be of questionable legitimacy. It also grants special privilege and unfair advantage to Mr. File and may be injurious to the board's abilities to maintain public confidence by alienating the trust of the citizens and employees of the school district. Furthermore, and at the very least, a matter of such importance should only be considered at a regular open meeting of the school board at which public comments are allowed. The people and taxpayers of the city ought to be granted the opportunity to freely express their opinions and concerns about the procedures and methods by which the school superintendents are appointed here, and especially in this particular case. If I were present at the meeting, or if I were allowed to vote by proxy on this issue of making the interim superintendent the official fully authorized superintendent of the Manitowoc Public School District in the manner being proposed, my vote would be a forceful nay. Respectfully submitted, Carrie Trask. Since you made the motion, Matthew, I'll have you speak to the motion.
Yeah, I made some notes and I would like to read this, but I want to reiterate that I am a parent in this school district. I'm a parent and I still have a child in this school district, and I strongly urge the rest of the board to listen to me not only as a board member, but as a parent. And these are the facts as I see it. About 5 months ago, Jim competed with a list of top 6 candidates, I believe. They were provided to us by School Exec Connect. And he came out on top. Not because the other candidates were no good. He came out on top because his vision was the most aligned with the current board and was in the direction this district so needs to move forward toward an exceptional future. When coming aboard, he was unanimously voted in, all 7 of us. And since then, he has done everything we have asked of him. Mind you, all 7 of us voiced our opinion that we did not want a superintendent that would just hold the position. We wanted someone that would not be afraid to move things around and shake things up. Someone who would put us on a path to increase our test scores, decrease our disciplinary issues, and address these woke ideologies. Which all 7 of us were in favor of, by the way, before I get chastised for saying that. We did this with the understanding that he was going to deal with a moderate amount of backlash, which actually I thought it would be worse. The online presence via social media is there, but myself, and I'm only assuming the other members of the board, have received an overwhelming amount of support in more ways than one from parents, administration, and staff. Some, as you know, we have seen recently with 20 to 30 years experience being a teacher. Our veteran teachers reach out with a common theme. 2 common themes, actually. One, Jim, thank you for putting the needs of our students and staff ahead of your own popularity and acceptance. And 2, what we have been doing for many years isn't working. And if success for all is the answer, I'm 100% with you. That first theme is very important. Putting the needs of students and staff ahead of his own popularity and acceptance. At a time when an interim superintendent could not be more vulnerable. That takes faith and conviction. Faith and conviction that you are doing the right thing. And that shows real character, in my opinion. In the beginning, I stated he was selected out of the top 5 months ago, or whatever. This list provided to us by School Exec Connect and other clerks that we hired. And that list, if it was provided today, I would bet wouldn't be much different. Actually, the only thing that we would do by searching again would be wasting taxpayer money and time, which are resources that we severely lack. There has been only one thing that has caused any sort of concern with Jim and the direction this district is going. And that is his title as an interim superintendent. Concerns for the fact that he's making some huge changes under our direction and with our approval, by the way, and still being an interim superintendent. We are aware of all these things and the decisions he makes ahead of time because he is such a collaborative leader, which is one of the most important things according to our public survey for qualities we should be looking at in a superintendent when we sought feedback from the community and staff. I see no reason to waste any more time or taxpayers' money searching for something that we already have. Period.
Colin, you seconded. I'll let you go ahead.
Thank you. So I've waffled on this decision, back and forth, something fierce, lately. The reason that I have, is because, you know, when we sat down and we did a national search, by the way, when we sat down, and that was for the interim, I'll clarify that. But when we went ahead and did that, we had voted and heard from candidates that were really great. Honestly, it was very hard pressed on the choices that we had, and we had some really good ones. But in the end, 7-0, we came together on this superintendent, the interim superintendent, and it was a very good candidate. I mean, he's doing, when you're coming into an interim position, and to be working that hard to institute change, it takes a lot, you know, and it's even to put your reputation out there so fiercely. That's what he's done. But, you know, we could have gone the route, and one person had alluded to the fact of, you know, more than one person had alluded to the fact of focus groups and so on. And I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, well, great. But, you know, but right now, you know, we can't agree on this, that, the other thing. There's been so much divide in this district So we put it out there to a focus group. One focus group will want this person, one focus group will want this person, and we got even more divide. It is unfortunate that there is so much divide in the district. It really is, because, we all should have a common denominator. Even some of the public input was calling for the same thing of, let's focus on why we're here. And I don't feel like sometimes that's been the objective of some people. I think that they're focusing on not the children as much as I think that they should be. We've met with him multiple times, interviewed, in interviewing him is meeting with him multiple times. How many times do we need to interview with him till we say, all right, you know what, I'm pretty confident you're doing exactly what you're doing. And you're all right. How is this process? Has it improved? We have greater communication. That was one of my largest complaints as a board member, that, sometimes my communication of things going on in the district was not that great. It's improved dramatically. I've been night and day, honestly. I feel more involved into the process, and I can say that is a breath of fresh air. So what should we do? Should we start all over? We have all these things that we're working on right now. Let's start over. Let's stop what we're doing and bring another person to the table. I don't think that's a great plan either. So I honestly do support the putting interim superintendent file to the position of full-time superintendent file.
Any other?
I just want to add to this, if I could. I couldn't imagine it. Just to kind of touch on what you said, everything that we've been doing, we are moving forward, and we are making some great strides, and we are making some big changes. I couldn't imagine bringing or going through what we did. If you guys remember how many hours that we put in. We had one interview day where it was like 6-8 hours. We were interviewing people. I couldn't imagine doing that all over and picking another person and trying to get them on the same page that we're at right now, period.
Yeah, for me, I mean, this really comes down to just, the time and opportunity cost. I believe that's just going to take away our focus from where it belongs right now, and that's figuring out this literacy crisis that we're in and solving that and the other achievement gaps that we've seen here in our district. Jim scored very well on the evaluation that we did, so I think that's worth noting. Everything that we've asked him to do since he's come on, he's done, and I agree with the sentiment that the interim label is really not going to help us move the district forward. And I firmly believe that based on what I've seen so far, he's brought us a viable program that is worth looking into with the SFA. Certainly there's others that we're considering, but he's doing everything that we've tasked him with so far. And honestly, the other thing I'll bring up is that early on in the process, when we went through everything with the search, the interim search, there wasn't unanimous agreement amongst us on how that should look. Why should we commit ourselves to doing another search down the road if we end up getting a candidate that we like and demonstrates the abilities that we're looking for?
Yeah.
So to me, we'd be doing a huge disservice to the taxpayers and to the parents if we went through this charade, knowing that we have a candidate that is unanimously supported. All of us agree on that. We may not all agree on the process to get there, but ultimately we have to ask ourselves, what's best for the kids? And in my opinion, based on what we've seen so far, what's best for the kids is to address our problems head on. And that would include solving this literacy crisis that we're in right now. Because only 25% or whatever it is right now of our children are reading at proficiency level. And that is unacceptable. And we may not all disagree on, we may not all agree on the path forward, but we all agree that's not good enough. And we have to do better. And Jim has my full support moving forward.
Anyone else?
Mr. File, I'd like to tell you that I've been interviewing you for 4.5 months, and you've been like this. I ask you a hard question, you're like this. You've been consistent. You've been honest, you've been honorable, you've been results orientated. You have the best interest of this community, even though you're not from here. You drove for an interview, I don't know how many miles, at least over 100, right? Because I saw where you live, and it's crazy. I can't believe you know you have no investment here except that you love education and you wanna work. That's the biggest quality I see out of you right off the bat. Is when you come to work every day, you're ready to work as hard as you can and to provide for the community that's at need, and you see a need, and that's from day one when you interviewed. Because I've interviewed a lot of people. In the first month, honeymoon period, it's great, everything's great. And then it kind of starts falling apart. But you've been like this. You've been consistent. So when teachers or community members ask me, he's been consistent. And you're very honorable and you're very truthful. Transparency, we've been reviewing you, we've been evaluating you on closed sessions every single month and every single meeting. So you've been under review the whole time. And transparency, we're not going to say that publicly because it's about your employment. We've been testing you, we've been measuring you, we've been weighing you, and you've been consistent. And I commend you for doing that. I asked, what's his motivation? He just cares about kids. He has nothing to prove. He's already done his work. He's already had a successful career. He is doing this because he cares about this community, and he cares about the fight because he sees a problem and he wants to fix it. And yes, there's been hurdles, and you're not great at every single little thing. And I'll be honest, and I'll tell you that. And that's what life is about, learning and growing, right? And you've been doing that. I want to say I'm responsible for my vote tonight, and I understand what I'll be saying, and I understand this is not the way that I would have liked it to be, but I am not going to have a kangaroo court for the next 6 months and then come up with the same vote. I just won't do it. I have a family. I want to spend time with them. Everybody else does too. And you've done this. You've been consistent, and you've been honest and honorable and respectful. So you have my vote tonight for a full-time position because you've earned it. And if anybody wants to say that you haven't earned it, let them say it, because we're moving forward and you're a captain of our ship. Thank you.
Yeah, it won't be as pretty as everybody else's though, so eloquently, but I think for me, when we talked about the 4.5-month interview, that certainly holds true. I view it as a waste of dollars and of time moving forward if we were to do a full search. I feel like we did that already. And I know people keep talking about the promises made, but guys, I have looked back through all of our meeting minutes, as many of our meetings virtually as I can. I've never found us making a promise. Was it part of discussion? Absolutely. Absolutely part of discussion. But did we promise it? I don't think so, guys. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I know I'll probably get 1,000 emails now or something, right? But whether we did or not, as a board, we have a right to change our mind. We've seen Jim in action for 4.5 months. He's proven himself. He's not afraid to do the hard thing. And he's a great communicator. And I think a lot of what Carrie mentioned in his letter talks about appearances. I would appreciate that. I would appreciate spending money and spending time in this district on appearances for appearances' sake and what's going to look good to the public. The truth is, I believe that Jim will be a great leader for this district. He'll offer consistency, and that's what we need right now. To keep Jim as our interim superintendent is not what's best for the district right now. I think it's hard for people to work that way, not knowing what's in your future. Our teachers today ask for consistency. It gives you your consistency. It says, this is your leader now. We're moving forward. This is what we're working with. And so I don't know if I've done it very well. I just know that I just guess I keep writing down here, social media is being used as a divisive tool in this district, and I'm really tired of it. Can we please stop and just think about our educating our kids and stop getting on there as groups and thinking about, I want to join in a group and add to this because I want to be part of it. I'm tired of it. I don't do social media, so it's really easy for me to lecture that way. because it is ugly, it's divisive, it's negative. Please stop. It's not what is best for the kids in this district. We need to get down to education, people. Let's not bring our adult issues onto our kids. And we have before us a great person and someone who's been doing a really tough job under a lot of pressure. And I think he will continue to do that. And I hope he'll accept that position if we all vote that way. So I too will lend my support to making Jim our full superintendent.
I think you said it beautiful. It was
Did
very
I?
eloquent.
I got very lecturing, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So being the last one here, I'm only one vote, and I, like Colin, have also gone back and forth. As the privilege of your president, I get to hear a lot from people, probably more so than you all do. And to say that I haven't weighed heavily on the people that have reached out to me would just be not true. A few of the past presidents reached out, and I did meet with them, and we talked initially about they gave advice to how they would recommend that I lead the board in an interim search, and how they in the past have done full superintendent searches. And I remember it being very stressful that we had to do this so fast. And I was so appreciative of those past presidents reaching out and knowing they usually start their conversation with, I know that you and I don't see eye to eye on some things, but they were very supportive. Call me anytime. I've texted back and forth with them on several occasions. So I really value, so to fast forward to last week, I had that same conversation with those same two people. And even though I believe that we need to do something different, that's what this board has always been about, is trying to do something that hasn't been done, because what we have all seen is that hasn't worked. And it's not one person, it's not one thing, it's our system hasn't worked. And for us to get back there, I think I'm so proud of this board, and despite, Carrie's comments, we've all been able to work together and to keep that main objective, which is we were elected to serve in the best way that we now know with the information that we have. So I appreciate that. I also have sat down. There isn't one person that has ever asked me to meet with them that I haven't gone. Teacher, administrator, and they have also offered me that same kindness to come and talk to them and try to understand where they're coming from. And I think the most thing that I've been conflicted about in this decision is that not everyone's happy. And I think our teacher said it well. Change is very hard, and but it's a necessary evil that we have here. And sure, I look back and think, could I have led us in a different way? Could I have suggested something different? Absolutely. Hindsight, right? But I think that in sharing what others have said, I think that if we, I think the biggest issue, and it's unfortunate, but Jim is disliked by many because we're disliked. And I don't think that's fair. And I think if we were to do a national search, it would be because we wanted to be liked rather than what was in the best interest. Because I do believe at the end of the day, Jim would apply for that position. We would get people to come forward and the board still would make the same decision. And people would weigh in that they liked this candidate over this one. And they'd still be unhappy with us. So I think we were elected to this position, and I've been reminded over the last, my first year, that this is the only position that I have any say in. You don't get to pick the administrators, and you don't get to pick the teachers, and that's none of your business. And so this is the only one that we get to weigh in on. And I'm not happy about the teachers not being happy. You know, but I can assure you that if I've said it once, I've said it 100 times. This board is pro educator, pro teacher, and we have been reached out by many people, and I wish those were the ones that would come forward. But they're scared. They're scared to be criticized by their peers. And they are longtime district employees. They've been here 20 plus years. So, in closing, I too support this decision. Are there any other comments or anything anyone else would like to say?
Yeah, I would just like to quickly add, and this was brought up in public input, and I too value input from our staff, including the previous board presidents. But if we're going to look at it objectively, you know, following the suggested path is no guarantee of success, right? So we have to keep that in mind and address the problems in front of us with the sense of urgency that they deserve. The only other comment I would add to that is, what's the motion for? How many years is the contract through?
The rest of this year and next year.
So this,
2025.
yeah, so this school year, and then also 23, 24.
Why wouldn't we do it longer than that?
Well, I think pretty young. It would be, we normally only do a 2-year contract.
That's why it is the way it is.
You know, guys, don't laugh. He didn't know, so he asked the question.
Well, and
Right. I mean, yeah, you were laughing.
I'll finish up with my little spiel. So obviously, policy structures that the Board of Education makes the decision hiring a superintendent. That's the only hire that the Board of Education makes. So, and then your comment, Kathy. Yeah, I mean, same thing with Stacy's comment. Not everybody's going to like the decision, and that's understandable. I understand why. So, but moving forward, you know, we're going to try to do that. So that's all I have to say.
So the biggest reason that I waffled back and forth, it wasn't the fact that I didn't want to put to bring Superintendent File to his full-time superintendency. The part of that I've questioned was the process. The process was the biggest thing to me. Is I felt, you know, should we go out there and should we, you know? But I heard from both sides. I really did. I spoke to both sides on this. You know, people that were very much for let's go full time. People that said, hey, pump the brakes a bit. And I really want to just point out that the reason that I had waffled a little bit was because of the process. But I think honestly, it would be exactly like what was stated. It would be a kangaroo. You know, that for the most part, I don't think we've been more pleased with what the product that Superintendent File has brought forward in the many things and interactions that we've had. So thank you. And
one more thing I would like to address, 2 more things actually that was brought up in public comment. Somebody had said that the current climate has caused this, and it's 100%. I agree. The current climate, and it goes to what Kathy was discussing with social media. And I'd like to take the time to have everybody just sit back and reflect: where is the division coming from, and who is bringing the conflict? Who is actually causing this climate? And another thing that was also brought up I think is very important is continuity and what is going to stay the same. And I think we do need to address that. And one of the things I would like to say, at least in my opinion anyway, being one board member, is that we're going to continue to drive forward and with our same agenda of trying to increase the test scores of these children and putting the students and staff first. We're going to continue to do the same things that we always have been doing. And with this update, should we all choose to vote for it, it's going to make things smoother. So we can definitely look into more things as well, because I really do. I took that to heart because I do know that, just like she had stated, and I think she's one of our teachers, very well spoken. The continuity is something that it's a friendly space for people. Change is hard, but we definitely need to make them aware that, you know, we're very proud of them. We're happy with the job that they're doing. We're going to try to guide them to get a different outcome, but they are good teachers. They're fantastic, and we can address the continuity. But we are making some big changes, and to make it a smooth transition, I believe this is necessary.
Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, the next thing is just remarks from me. I don't really have any, just a happy Thanksgiving to everybody. And thank you for tolerating long meetings. And looking forward to, again, moving forward and getting stuff.
I do want to highlight governance is sloppy, but it is the best system we have. And when we exchange ideas and we debate freely, that's the whole purpose of governance. And the truth of it is, if we all had the same exact opinion, we wouldn't have 3-hour meetings. So I do want to put that to bed about having long meetings, because we are trying to wrestle with the problems that we are having, and we're not going to just push through things. So they are going to take time, because we are free-thinking individuals. So I do want to make sure that we know that governance is sloppy, and that's a good thing in this instance.
Can you get,
it's going to take time.
Can you get Spalding on board then with the long meetings? Just.
Sorry.
All right, that is all the, we have future meeting dates. I do not believe that there's any meeting next week for anything. Is that correct? Okay, and then the following week, we don't even have governance, because that wouldn't be the first.
6th, we got a budget finance.
Budget finance on the 6th.
Yep.
Curriculum is
Correct.
21st.
I had a different one on my calendar. I'll have to adjust that. Oh, my apologies. Yep,
The
that one
6th
was
might be governance.
Executive is on the
Executive,
7th.
Yeah, yep. Kathy, you said yours?
Yeah, curriculum is to be determined. We're still trying to figure out a schedule that will work for everybody.
And, you know, Carrie's not here, buildings and grounds.
7.
The 7th?
On the 7th?
Okay. I think that was all of them, right?
4:30.
4:30.
Oh, and personnel, we have a standing meeting now, Mike, the second Monday. Second Monday of the month?
I think it's December 12th.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, I think that is it. Do I have a motion to adjourn from our open session?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion, any nays? Okay, motion carries. Give us a break and then we'll call our closed meeting tomorrow.
Don't matter.
I will, I'll read.
Excuse me. Excuse me.